You know, life has a funny way of flipping everything upside down when you least expect it. 6 years ago, I thought I had it all figured out. My name's Jake, I was 26 at the time, working for the DEA, and engaged to the most amazing woman I'd ever met. Her name was Rachel. We were just a few months away from tying the knot, and she was pregnant with our first child. I couldn't have been happier, but what happened next? You won't believe how fast everything came crashing down. Now let me rewind a bit. Growing up, my best friend was Nick. His life was anything but easy. When he was just 12, his father was taken out in a shootout with the police. After that, Nick had no one left, so, my parents, trying to do the right thing, decided to take him in. They treated him like one of their own. Actually, more than that, he became the golden child, I won't lie. It stung a little seeing him get the kind of love and attention I didn't, but I told myself it was for a good reason. He'd been through hell, and maybe, just maybe, he needed it more than I did. Fast forward to the point where everything started unraveling. 6 years ago, out of nowhere, I got called into a meeting with my superiors at the DEA. I wasn't an undercover agent, never trained to be one, but they had other plans. They dropped a bomb on me right then and there. The real reason Nick's dad, Ethan, was gunned down. Turns out, Ethan wasn't some innocent bystander. He was a founding member of a notorious biker gang called the Reapers. These guys ran illegal operations across several cities, drugs, weapons, you name it, and they'd never managed to plant someone on the inside, until now. They saw my history with Nick as a golden opportunity. Since we were practically brothers, they figured I could use that connection to go undercover. I was stunned. I told them flat out, no way. I was getting married in a couple months, and Rachel was already 2 months pregnant, but they assured me, promised me, it would only be for a week. All I had to do was attend a meeting and find out the location. Sounded simple enough, right? Yeah, nothing about it was simple. Only Rachel knew I worked for the DEA. Everyone else in my life, including Nick, thought I had a regular federal job, and of course, I couldn't tell Rachel I was going undercover, so, I told her and my family I'd be working long shifts that week, just a bit of overtime, no big deal. The plan was basic: pose as a buyer to gain some trust, get a foot in the door. Shockingly, the Reapers took the bait quickly, but just when I thought the mission was going smoothly, disaster struck. Minutes into the meeting, everything exploded, figuratively and almost literally. SWAT raided the place. Someone had apparently called in a tip about a potential bomb threat. We were all taken down, cuffed, and booked for drug trafficking. I figured once they got me into an interrogation room, my superior would clear things up and I'd be out by lunchtime, but when he walked in, he didn't have good news, not even close. He looked me in the eye and said every single biker they'd arrested had pointed the finger at me, claiming I was some kind of mid-level boss in the organization, and instead of correcting the record, he saw it as an opportunity. His golden opportunity. I told him I wanted no part of it. I was done, but then he leaned in and gave me 2 choices: rot in prison for decades, or keep playing the part and become a national hero. Honestly, I lost it. I called him every name in the book, but in the end, I didn't have a choice. I agreed. To make it believable, they sentenced me to 30 years behind bars. Yep, 3 whole decades. My family was devastated. They thought I'd actually been arrested for buying drugs, and the worst part, I couldn't tell them the truth. I couldn't tell anyone. Before I was transferred, I pulled Nick aside. I begged him, to look after Rachel. She was alone, pregnant, and scared. He looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Don't worry, Jake, I got you." Those words, they haunt me now. The next 5.5 years. Brutal. I gathered everything I could about the Reapers, names, deals, routines, but the leadership structure remained a mystery. And then one day in the prison showers, it happened. A group of guys jumped me. I was beaten so badly, I ended up in the hospital, 3 months in recovery. The doctors didn't even know if I'd make it through the first week. But I survived, and as soon as I could speak, I told the authorities who attacked me and which guards were working that day. That ended up being the breakthrough they needed. Combined with the intelligence I'd already gathered, it led to the identification of several major players in the gang. Eventually, they let me out. My sentence was re-examined and magically overturned. My parents were told I had been wrongfully imprisoned, but from the way they looked at me. I knew they didn't buy it, not for a second. I asked about Rachel, how she was doing, how my son was. At first, they tried to dodge the question, but then they dropped a truth bomb so big it felt like the room started spinning. They'd told Rachel I was dead. Yep, instead of telling her I'd been arrested, they told her I was killed in a shootout between police and gang members. Their excuse? They didn't want her to waste 30 years of her life waiting for me. They thought it was better to let her move on. And that's exactly what she did. 3 months from now, she's marrying Nick, my best friend, my brother. I was stunned, furious. I demanded a phone. At first, my dad refused, but eventually, he handed it over. I called her, my heart pounding, but Nick picked up instead. He told me Rachel didn't want to speak with me, said she'd moved on, said he'd come talk to me instead. We met at my parents' house later that day. Nick sat across from me and said he did what I asked. He took care of her, he was there for her through the pregnancy, through the heartbreak, through everything. Their son, a healthy baby boy, was born and she named him Jake, after me. Then he hit me with another blow. After 3 years of being close, they developed feelings, started dating. 6 months ago, he proposed, she said yes. So now, after 6 years of risking my life, after giving up everything, I come back to a world where my fiancé is marrying my best friend, my son doesn't even know who I am, and my family still thinks I'm a criminal. It's not over, though. After a long, ugly argument, I managed to arrange something. Next week, I get to see my son for the first time. And believe me, that meeting changes everything. It's been a couple weeks since I got out, and honestly, it still doesn't feel real. I've been crashing at my parents' house for now, trying to figure out my next steps, trying to find a place, trying to breathe, but it's hard to catch your breath when you're suffocating in betrayal. There's been a lot of tension in this house, a lot of fights. My parents and I have been going at it, non-stop, over their decision to tell Rachel I was dead. I get it, they thought they were protecting her, but instead, they helped bury me while I was still alive. You don't just come back from that. I also found out that a few days before my release, when they finally told Rachel I was alive, she had a breakdown, full-on emotional collapse. Can you imagine? Finding out the man you loved, the father of your child, didn't die like you were told, he'd been in prison all along. She couldn't handle it. And if you're wondering why I haven't returned to the job, after 6 years risking my life behind bars, well, I'm on 3 months paid leave. My superiors told me to take time to heal, to rebuild. The least we can do, they said. A week after I shared my story, Rachel still wasn't ready to see me, but I got to meet my son. That moment, it shattered me. I saw this beautiful, bright 5-year-old boy with my eyes, and no clue who I was. The years we lost, I'll never get them back. He was cautious, shy, but kind, sweet as hell. I could tell he was raised with love. We started seeing each other once a week. It became the only thing I looked forward to. But then, this week, something changed. Rachel came. She looked like she'd been crying, eyes red, hands shaking, and the first thing out of her mouth wasn't hello, it was, why did you lie to me? I froze. What lie? She kept going. She wanted to know why I lied about being a cop, why I told my parents to say I was dead. She said she believed for 5 years that I died in a shootout trying to arrest drug dealers. She mourned me every single day. Then, when Nick proposed, she actually said no. She told him she was still in love with me, still grieving. That's when he told her the truth, or his version of it. He said I wasn't a cop, that I was one of the drug dealers, that I'd gone to prison, and that I was too ashamed to face her, so I told my family to say I was dead so she could move on. And then, to drive the knife even deeper, he called my parents, in front of her, and had them confirm his story. They told her I was a criminal, that I was ashamed, that I asked them to protect her from the truth. A few days later, she said yes, she agreed to marry him. I tried to tell her the truth, that I was undercover, that none of it was what she thought, but she didn't believe me. Her heart had already been broken once. She wasn't going to take another chance. She told me, flat out, to leave them alone, said her priority was her son now, said she was marrying Nick in 2 months because, unlike me, he was a real man who didn't lie to the people he loved. I didn't even have the words, I just went home. But something didn't sit right with me, that assault in prison, the one that nearly killed me. It happened right around the time Nick and Rachel got engaged. The timing was too perfect, too convenient. That night, I decided my vacation was over. Tomorrow, I'm going back to work. It's been 2 weeks since then. I've thrown myself back into the job, and surprise, surprise, Nick and Rachel haven't let me see my son since that conversation. No calls, no visits, nothing. But that just fuels me more, because now I have questions. I keep thinking about Nick, the boy I used to look up to, my best friend, my brother. Back in school, I thought he was the coolest kid around, charming, confident, people gravitated toward him, even the girls I liked always seemed to end up with him, and somehow, he'd make me feel like he was doing me a favor, like he was looking out for me. I remember the day I found out his dad had died. We were 12, he stopped showing up to school, and I overheard the teachers whispering that he'd seen the whole thing, the police shooting his father right in front of him. They said he had no family left, that he was headed to foster care. I went home and told my parents. They were heartbroken. They made some calls, and eventually, they adopted him. After that, everything changed. Nick became their favorite. He was the wounded bird they had to protect, and me? I didn't mind, at least, not at first. I understood. I thought, he needs them more than I do. But over the years, things shifted. My parents bent over backwards for him, even when he crossed lines, like flirting with girls I liked. They chalked it up to trauma. He could do no wrong. And because of how his dad died, the topic of police became taboo in our house. For years, any time he heard sirens or saw a badge, he'd break down, panic attacks, screaming fits. Eventually, he got better, but my parents kept the rules in place. No police talk, no cop shows, nothing. By the time we were in our late teens, we'd grown apart. I still called him my best friend, but something had shifted. When I graduated, I moved out. There wasn't enough money to send both of us to college, so my parents paid for his tuition, his board, his future. And me? I decided to go my own way. At 20, I joined the police force. I knew my family would never approve, especially Nick, so I kept it quiet, told them I got a job in security. That was easier than dealing with the judgment. But now, looking back, I'm wondering, did he know? Did he ever really have my back? Because the man I knew, the brother I loved, would never have taken my fiancée, my child, and my life from me. Unless this was his plan all along. A year after I joined the force, I met Rachel. Now, I wish I could say it was love at first sight, fireworks and slow motion and all that, but nah, we actually didn't get along at all. She was my next-door neighbor, and we rubbed each other the wrong way from the jump, but then I found out something that changed everything. She had a stalker. And no matter how she felt about me, I wasn't gonna stand by and do nothing, so anytime I saw her heading to her car or coming back from work, I'd walk with her. At first, she hated it, thought I was being overprotective or nosy or whatever, but over time, the walls started to come down. We started talking, then we started laughing, then we started grabbing coffee once in a while, and just when I thought maybe, just maybe, we were starting to become friends, he struck. Her stalker showed up out of nowhere, attacked her in broad daylight. I was close by. I ran to her, got the guy in a headlock, held him there until the cops came. She was shaken, completely in shock. I don't even think she noticed how I addressed the officers by name, how they already knew who I was. After that, I didn't really need to walk her to her car anymore, but instead of walking away, I asked her out. And to my surprise, she said yes. That was the beginning of it all. We started dating. We clicked in a way I didn't see coming. A few months in, I brought her home to meet my parents. Nick was there too, of course, always there, always smiling. He turned on the charm like he always did, but Rachel barely looked at him. My parents loved her. She already knew about my job at that point, and she respected it, kept it quiet, didn't ask questions she shouldn't ask. I loved that about her. Then, things took a turn. Nick crashed his car. It had to go in for repairs, and of course, my parents asked me to lend him mine. I said I needed it for work, but they insisted. Nick has college, a job, help him out, so I caved. Not even a week later, he called me, said the car had been stolen. I filed a report. The car was found a few hours later in some parking lot, unlocked, abandoned. The officer who found it popped the door open, and spotted something. Drugs, on the floor. If I hadn't been a cop, that could have ruined me. One random call to the wrong department, and I would have been arrested on the spot, my badge gone, my future gone. I cooperated fully, took a drug test, let internal affairs run an investigation. Thankfully, I was cleared. They said it must have been the thief, just an unlucky coincidence. But now, looking back, I don't believe in coincidences anymore. 2 years later, I transferred to narcotics. I was 24, hungry to prove myself, constantly under pressure. Meanwhile, I still kept in touch with Nick. I thought we were good, and since he hated cops, I never had to worry about any overlap with my work life. He was never going to bump into my partners or stumble across my cases. A little over a year later, I proposed to Rachel. She said yes. I remember asking Nick to be my best man. He smiled, gave me a big hug, told me it would be the greatest honor of his life. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? 8 months later, Rachel told me she was pregnant. God, I was so happy. I had the job I loved, the woman I adored, and now, we were going to be parents. It felt like everything was coming together, like all the struggle, all the secrets, all the hard work. It was finally worth it. But that feeling didn't last. 2 months later, the mission that would steal 6 years of my life was dropped on my desk. Looking back on it now, I can see things clearer. I see the pattern. I thought Nick was my best friend, my brother, but maybe that was just me. Maybe the truth is, he never saw me the same way. Maybe he only saw what he could take from me. And I let him, for years. I let him have the spotlight because I felt sorry for him. I let him push me around because it became normal. Even as a cop, I still let him cross lines, because I didn't want to fight. Maybe that's why I went undercover. Maybe deep down, I didn't believe I had a choice. I didn't push back when my bosses dangled the assignment in front of me. I didn't push back when they said it would be dangerous. I just said yes. Meanwhile, Nick had gotten so used to taking what he wanted, he probably didn't think twice when Rachel didn't give him the attention he was used to. She didn't flirt back, didn't giggle at his jokes. So he decided she was going to be his. He didn't have to ask me, he didn't have to tell me, he just took her. And maybe he thinks he's won. But what he doesn't know is that I'm not the same man he used to manipulate. Prison changed me. I had to learn how to survive, how to fight, how to stand tall, even when I was outnumbered, because if I didn't, I'd be dead. I came back to a life that was stolen from me, but I didn't crawl out of hell just to give up now. I'm not done, not even close. And now? Now it's time to get back to work. The wedding's next week. You'd think I'd be focused on tuxedos and vows and seating charts, but no, my life's a whirlwind right now. I've been buried in work, tied up in something much bigger than me. I just hope we can wrap the investigation before I say, I do. It's been just over 2 months since I learned the truth. Rachel had told Nick that I was in law enforcement. She swears it wasn't a big deal at the time. She didn't think it would matter, but when I found out when she told him, everything started clicking into place. Like, how did my cover get blown so fast? Why was I treated like some high-ranking member the moment I met the Reapers? Why were they so eager to welcome me in? And who the hell called in that fake bomb scare? It all came back to that moment, to her telling him. I got lucky, though. Nick didn't know I was a cop at the time of the meeting. If he had, I probably wouldn't be standing here today. He didn't know his betrayal would end up giving me the in I needed. He didn't know that his attempt to get rid of me would backfire so badly it would expose him. He still doesn't know that I know he knows. Mainly because Rachel's been avoiding me like the plague. She won't talk to me, won't let me see my son, and that silence. It's painful. But here's the thing. For the first time, I'm the one in control. When I got back to work, I made a request. I asked to be assigned to the task force investigating the Reapers. You'd think I was already on it, considering I spent 6 years of my life risking everything to infiltrate them, but no, originally, I was just supposed to go in for a week, get a location, get out. Then the prison op happened. And from that point on, it was one-way traffic. I passed intel through secure channels, no face-to-face, no real briefings, just isolation. They were too afraid of blowing my cover to give me anything more. But now that I was back, now that I had survived, I wasn't asking to help, I was demanding it. They told me I had more than earned my place, that even if I hadn't asked, I would have been put on the task force anyway. Still, I kind of embarrassed myself a little. I told them I believed Nick was the actual leader of the Reapers. I laid it all out. How his dad was a founding member, how he was the one who blew my cover, how he set me up for prison not once, but twice. They heard me out. They didn't agree that he was the top dog, said he was too young, not respected enough, not experienced, but they did agree on something even better. Nick was our weak link. So they restructured the investigation with Nick as the primary target. That's when everything started moving, fast. We put Nick under 24-hour surveillance. Every call, every text, every dollar in or out of his accounts, we had eyes on it all, phones, emails, bank transfers, everything. At first, we didn't think we'd find much. Guys like Nick usually use burner phones and shell accounts, but man, we underestimated just how cocky he really was. Turns out, being the golden boy your whole life makes you reckless. Nick used his own phones to contact criminals, he used his own bank accounts for dirty money, he sent coded emails using his actual email. Sloppy doesn't even begin to describe it. And that wasn't even the best part. Remember Rico? The guy who ordered the hit on me? We already had his phone records, but we didn't know which numbers mattered, until we cross-referenced Nick's calls. Boom. Nick called Rico 3 days before I was jumped. And he sent money. We caught him red-handed. And surveillance? It was gold. Nick led us to stash houses, drug dens, brothels we didn't even know existed, and then he started visiting someone we hadn't heard about in a while, Capone. Yeah, that's not a nickname you forget. Capone looked like Al Capone if he got a full-body tattoo and joined a motorcycle club. He was one of the gang's OGs, best friends with Nick's dad. Everyone thought he retired years ago after his last prison stint. Turns out, nah, he just made it look like he did. Nick led us straight to him. And once we started tracking that connection, the puzzle pieces started falling into place. Capone took Nick under his wing, probably when Nick was still a teenager, treated him like a nephew, protected him, groomed him. And in doing so, exposed himself. All thanks to Nick's arrogance. Everyone on the task force kept telling me, this was the fastest the investigation had ever moved. We were making breakthroughs every single day. They even said I might be up for a commendation. But honestly, I wasn't thinking about medals. I was thinking about Rachel, about my son, about what Nick might do next. Because yeah, we've got enough to take Nick down, but we don't just want Nick, we want the entire Reapers organization dismantled, burned to the ground, no chance to rebuild. And we're close, so damn close. But I can't shake this feeling. The more I learn about who Nick really is, the more I worry about what he might do to the people I love. And until I know they're safe, I can't rest. 2 days ago, we got the green light. Nick was arrested, along with 7 of his closest associates. Capone was taken into custody that same night in a raid that shut down one of the biggest drug distribution networks on the West Coast. The look on Nick's face when they cuffed him. I'll never forget it. It wasn't anger, it wasn't fear. It was confusion. He never saw it coming, he truly thought he was untouchable. I guess no one ever taught him that eventually, the house of cards always falls. He tried to talk his way out of it, blamed others, acted like a victim, but the evidence. It was ironclad. the wire transfers, the intercepted calls, the photos, the surveillance footage, every move he made, every arrogant mistake, was laid out in front of him. And I didn't even have to lift a finger. I watched from the other side of the glass, and for the first time in years, I felt peace. Rachel called me later that night. Her voice was shaking. She said she was sorry, for everything, for telling Nick, for freezing me out, for not believing me. She asked if it was really over. I told her no, not yet. Not until every last piece of the Reaper's network was gone, not until I knew our son would grow up in a world where Nick couldn't cast a shadow over his life. But we were damn close. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could look forward to my future. A future that starts next week, when I stand across from the woman I love and say, I do. A future where I'm not running, not hiding, not pretending. I'm just me. And I'm finally free.